And I hope that we take this moment seriously. I hope we think about the challenge that is in front of us all. Now, I like to think 16 years ago, when I got my start as an organizer, there was another organizer who was running for the office of President of the United States of America. Someone who happens to be here today. But I want us all, if you're old enough, to think about that feeling of hope and change. Think about how we all felt about the direction of this country in that moment. And I'm not here to say that hope and change is back. I'm here to say that hope and change never left. And while on the ballot this Tuesday, hope and change is in the form of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, I would like to sincerely say that every single day, that hope and change has been you all. It has always been with the people who have had the courage to change the situations around them, who've had the courage to stand up when things got tough, who've had the courage to take on bullies like Donald Trump. Now, I don't need to sit here and talk about what the 4 years that we had to deal with the former guy were like. We all had to deal with it, and we're all still dealing with it. We're not going back, but we're talking about a Supreme Court that doesn't respect us. We're talking about people even running for Congress and state legislative seats who have been the most disrespectful to folks who don't look like them, people who have different experiences. And look, I got called different, and we know that. We all know what that's about. But I want to tell you that it's our differences that are our strength. We won't win in spite of our differences. We're going to win because of our differences. Now, Kamala Harris embodies the change that we all desire, the change that we want to see, but it's going to be up to us to stand with her. It is going to be up to us to organize, and we have just a couple short days to get the job done. And I know everybody in here has a plan to vote. But what I need you to do is to make sure that your friends, your family members, your neighbors all have a plan to vote. And if you've already early voted, you got a responsibility to get 5 more people to the polls between now and Election Day. So, Milwaukee, we've done tough things before. We've also been disappointed before. My race was decided by 1%, 26,000 votes, 2 to 3 votes per ward. And I see in this crowd a lot of people who knocked on doors for me, a lot of people who made phone calls for me. And I sincerely thank you for that. And if you were involved or if you were not involved in that race, I need you to show up for Kamala Harris as if our livelihoods depend on it, as if our freedom depends on it, as if our rights depend on it, as if the future depends on it. We have had some historic firsts in this state. I don't need to run down the list, but we were the first state to ratify the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. We were the first state to declare the Fugitive Slave Act unconstitutional. We were the first state to have anti-discrimination laws based on sexual orientation on the books. We've done bold things before. We've elected people like Vel Phillips, who has been such an inspiration to me. We've elected people like Congresswoman Gwen Moore. We've elected people like Senator Tammy Baldwin. And I can assure you that Wisconsin is going to be the deciding factor in sending Kamala Harris to the White House. So if you're ready to answer that call, if you're ready to show up like you never showed up before, if you're ready to take on and defeat fascism, if you are ready to rise above and take on and defeat hate, if you are ready for a future better than anything we could have ever imagined, I'm gonna need you to please show up. I'm gonna need you to make those phone calls. I'm gonna need you to send those text messages. I'm gonna need you to organize in communities, urban, suburban, rural, and otherwise, and show them that we are so much stronger together. The future is in your hands, ladies and gentlemen. I just hope you all believe it. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's send Kamala Harris to the White House. And let's all be the change that we deserve. Thank you so much.
Please welcome Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Said I like the way you sail your ship now in the Vio cargo.
Hello, Milwaukee! I am Mayor Cavalier Johnson, and I am so excited to be here with each and every single one of you today, including the ones behind my back. Hello, guys. And I'm excited because not only are we welcoming the former President of the United States, Barack Obama, back to Milwaukee, but today is also the final day to vote early in Milwaukee. Look, we are in the final stretch of this race, and as each and every single one of you know, this race, it depends on each and every single one of us. All of us who are in this room right now. Our vote is our voice. And if you haven't yet voted, please make a plan to vote. And not just for you, but talk to your friends, talk to your family members, talk to your neighbors about the importance of voting. As I mentioned, today is the last day to vote early in the city, and if you're not registered, please do not forget that you can register to vote on Election Day in the state of Wisconsin. But if you can vote early, you should, because you never know what'll happen on Election Day. You don't know. It could rain. I've been told it's gonna rain. You could get a flat tire. You shouldn't be afraid of rain, but it might rain. So you could get a flat tire. You could have a child care issue. Anything could happen on Election Day. So if you can vote early, you should vote early. And today, you can vote early in Milwaukee. So I'm encouraging everyone in this room to take out their phones right now. You got a phone, take it out. I know some of you already have your phones in your hands. Take it out and go to vote.wisdems.org. Find an early voting location that's convenient for you, and right after this event is over, right after we've heard from President Obama, I want you to head to that location and vote early today. All right? Vote early today. And when you go vote early, I don't want you to just cast a ballot. I want you to vote for Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. But voting isn't the only way that we need you to show up in this election. It just isn't. Those of you who feel just like I do, who want to be more engaged, I want you to go out and knock on some doors. Those doors are not going to knock themselves, y'all. We need y'all to go out and knock those doors. Go and do a phone bank. Send text messages. Help your friends, your family, your neighbors to know about the importance of getting to the polls and voting. Because here in Milwaukee, it is all hands on deck. It's all hands on deck. Because we know what the stakes are. We know what the stakes are in this election. And we've got a choice to make, a critical choice to make in this election between two different visions for America, two vastly different visions for our country. On one hand, we have the choice of an extreme a divisive agenda, one that certainly just is not going to put Milwaukee forward. It won't. I mean, think about it. That choice, Donald Trump, right? He just... If you boo a little later on, there's going to be a man in this spot who will tell you, don't boo, but do what? So Mr. Trump, he said just a few short months ago, and I haven't forgotten, he called Milwaukee, the largest community in the state of Wisconsin, he called us horrible. He called us horrible. And then on the other hand, you've got Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz who are fighting for a new way forward. A new way forward that will protect our rights, protect our freedoms, strengthen our democracy, and ensure that every person has the opportunity not just to simply get by, but the chance to get ahead. That's what Vice President Harris is all about. So look, there have been a number of slogans this campaign season. There's a new way forward, there's we're not going back, there's these guys are weird. Right, you guys have heard these, but the one that sticks out to me the most is that you may not be into politics, but politics is into you. Politics is into you. And in the pinnacle battleground state of Wisconsin, guess what? Milwaukee, we can make the difference. And Milwaukee shows up, then we win. We win. We win. We win. So let me ask you, Milwaukee, are you ready? Are you ready to send Kamala Harris to the White House? No. I said, Milwaukee, are you ready to send Kamala Harris to the White House? That's exactly what I thought. So, if you're ready to send Kamala Harris to the White House, then let's work together in these last couple of days. Let's work together to make our voices heard and elect Kamala Harris to be the next president of these United States. Thank you so much, Milwaukee!
Please welcome Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley.
When I move my body just like this, I don't know why, but I feel like freedom. I hear a song that takes me back, and I let go with so much freedom.
How y'all doing today? Wow. You know, I'm County Executive David Crowley, and our special guest today, he got me a little extra fired up. And he got me ready to vote, y'all. Ready to vote Kamala Harris to be the next president of the United States of America. We have 2 days, y'all, to take advantage of the opportunity for us all in this room and abroad to make history. We will decide the future of our democracy in 2 days. This election will determine the kind of future that we want for our children and our communities. Now, I don't know about you, but I know on November 4th, I plan on embodying our state's motto and not going backward, but going forward, y'all. Because I grew up in Milwaukee, 53206 zip code to be exact. And I saw firsthand the challenges that many hardworking families face every single day, just trying to get ahead. I've witnessed the generational trauma, the pain that tragically exists in our communities every single day. And I remember growing up on 23rd and Burleigh with young people who I knew on my block who had never seen Lake Michigan, simply because they didn't have the opportunity to. And so if growing up has taught me anything, it has taught me that I needed to step up and make things better for my community. But in order, all of us actually, but in order for us to do that, particularly for our young people, they need to find love. They need to find optimism. They need to find hope in the leaders that are around them. And I remember back then as a young person, when I watched a skinny kid with a funny name become the first African-American president of the United States of America. And in that moment, it changed me. It opened my eyes that there were new possibilities and new opportunities. It opened to my eyes that hope and change is actually possible here in this country. So I became a community organizer. I then served my people within this Wisconsin state legislature. And then I became the youngest and the first African American to serve as the county executive of Milwaukee County. Now today, I made sure to bring my 3 young daughters because I want my 3 young daughters, I want them to feel the same way I did when I first saw President Barack Obama make history. I want them to be inspired by the next generation of leaders. And I want us together to watch Kamala Harris at long last shatter that glass ceiling and become the first woman president of the United States of America. We know, just like President Obama, Kamala Harris is a proven champion for working families. She will fight every day for workers, for families, and children right here in Wisconsin. We've already seen our MVP, our Madam Vice President, for those who don't know. I like to call her our MVP. We've seen her work with folks like Senator Tammy Baldwin, to deliver real results for the state of Wisconsin and create new opportunities. And can I just say how important it is that we re-elect Tammy Baldwin back to the United States Senate? Oh yeah. Because Tammy has been constantly working to bring home federal investments. She's been helping us to build more affordable housing, expand access to health care, and grow our made in Wisconsin economy. Because the bottom line is this: Kamala Harris and Tammy Baldwin, they show up for us every day. Now it's time that we show up for them on November 5th. Now I know I got some folks behind me. I don't want to forget about y'all. It's good seeing y'all. But then we got to talk about this other guy, Donald Trump. First off, the audacity for him to come to Milwaukee yesterday. In the home of our world champion Milwaukee Bucks. And then he wanted to try to compare himself to our 2-time MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Y'all, who do we think he is? Weird, maybe, but he is no Greek freak, okay? He is not the Greek freak. Matter of fact, Donald Trump, he's not even a team player. He doesn't even care about you. He doesn't even care about the people who are around him. He's constantly spewing hate, racism, bigotry at every single chance that he gets. Donald Trump is not an effective leader. And he's proven us time and time again that he's not only unfit, but he's unqualified to serve the people. Absolutely unqualified. And we constantly hear him talking about how he want to go back. We just went back an hour. How far back do we got to go? Just like our Madam Vice President says, we are not going back. Two days, y'all. In 2 days, we will make history. In 2 days, we are going to make our voices heard at the ballot box. In 2 days, we're going to send Tammy Baldwin back to the United States Senate, and we're going to elect Democrats up and down the ballot right here in the state of Wisconsin, y'all. And in 2 days, we're going to elect Kamala Harris as the next President of the United States of America. 2 days, y'all. So now tell me, Milwaukee, are you fired up? Are you ready to go? Well, let's get out and vote, Milwaukee, because when we win, oh, excuse me, I did that wrong. Because when we vote, thank you, Milwaukee.
Please welcome the Congresswoman from the 4th District, Gwen Moore.
Woo! Boy, that was a long catwalk. Holla, holla, holla. Well, I'm gonna break some rules here today. I'm gonna talk about stuff you ain't supposed to talk about. You're supposed to never talk about God. I heard that. You're never supposed to talk about religion. And you're never supposed to talk about politics. And I'm gonna talk about all three of them today. I'm gonna talk about God because I'm telling you, no matter what faith you are, even if you're a person of no faith, all of us understand the concept of love and the concept of loving our neighbor, which is scriptural. I just went to church where I still got my church clothes on. Didn't get a chance to change for the Packer game this afternoon. But you know, the minister talked about a commandment of the Lord to love thy neighbor. And so therefore, I'm gonna ask you all to do something. And I'm gonna ask you all, because I know all of y'all are voters, but I'm gonna ask you to love your neighbor. And I'm gonna ask each and every one of you to be brave and to reach out to someone that you know is not intending to vote or may not vote, they're eligible to vote, and take the risk to show them some love. Say, you know what? I love you. That's why I want you to have your pension that you deserve, that not a single Republican in the United States of America voted for. I love you, which is why I want your kids to have a decent education. And Republicans want to dismantle the Department of Education. I love you, my brother. I love you, my sister, which is why I want you to have health care. And this guy coming on the stage here today, This dude with the funny name here is the person who delivered the Affordable Care Act. And let me tell you, to quote President Biden, now President Biden, that was a big deal. And let me just say that I love you so much that I want your kids who are under the age of 26 to benefit from the provision that Tammy Baldwin put in that bill to allow your kids to stay on their health care till they're 26. And while they're struggling with jobs, waiting tables, and trying to get through school, they can stay healthy. I love you enough to ask you to do that. And this guy that's coming up here later on, I know you didn't come here to see me, although while you're there at the polls, you may as well just go on and vote for me while you're there. This guy talking about hope and change, he actually did more than hope. He changed stuff. I want to talk about politics a little bit here before I head off the stage. I promise not to be long as the two other speakers who had y'all all fired up, but I want to talk about politics a little bit. You're going to be talking to people who are maybe Republicans, maybe have no affiliation whatsoever, but I want you to talk to them about the difference in politics. You have to think about people who are going to put people over politics and not power over politics. You may not have a long time to talk to them. You may not be able to remember all of the ins and the outs of the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which wasn't really bipartisan, y'all. About 2 people voted for it on the other side. You may not be able to talk to them about the largest contribution and investment in climate act. You can't get into all of that while you're watching the Packers and the Lions. But you can get that in there. My brother, my sister, I love you. And I think that you as a person deserve someone who's going to put people over politics. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to get off the stage because I know you want to see somebody to get up here. It's going to talk about hope. But let me tell you something. A new love language that I hope you learn is that I love you, my brother and sister. That's why I want you to vote. Vote. Vote and show your love for your neighbor, show your love for your family, and show your love for your country. I love y'all. I love you so much. It's been such an honor to represent you all. And I can tell you, I can guarantee you, if you give us a chance, the Democrats, if you give us a chance, we're going to deliver to you what we've delivered before, like that child tax credit that took half the kids in our community out of poverty. We promise you to help with the rent being too damn high. We promise you that we are going to keep Obamacare intact. Because Mike Johnson has already said he's going to get rid of taking care of all you people out there with the pre-existing conditions. And I know I ain't the only one with pre-existing conditions. So I just want to thank you for listening to me. I'm going to get off the stage. And you got one job, and that's a black job, that's a white job. It's a Jewish job, Mexican and a Puerto Rican job, by the way. Y'all got one job, and that's to have some courage and talk to that person who will not go unless you make that intervention. And we will win. That's all I want you to do.
Please welcome Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers.
Hello, Milwaukee. How the hell are you today? Outstanding. Are you fired up and ready to hear from President Obama? Does everybody have a plan to vote? If you haven't already, if you haven't voted, can I count on you to make sure you cast your ballot on November 5th, which is my birthday? For the Harris Walz ticket, Tammy Baldwin and Democrats up and down the ballot. This is an amazing place. Thank you so much for being here, because we have 2 days to do the work to keep Wisconsin blue. And let me tell you, folks, there's so much at stake in this election. For starters, just for starters, thanks to the FAIR maps I signed into law, for the first time in a decade, Wisconsinites are no longer voting under the most gerrymandered legislative maps in America. That means your voice and your vote will matter now more than ever. If we vote for Democrats up and down the ticket, we can flip the state assembly, win back seats in the Senate, and most importantly, we can make sure that the will of the people is the law of the land in Wisconsin once again. And folks, we have to re-elect Wisconsin's favorite senator, Tammy Baldwin. You know, we all love Tammy. Tammy is as Wisconsin as it gets. She cares about us, she shows up, and she brings people together to solve problems. How about that? Now, her opponent couldn't be much more different. First of all, Eric Hovde. He's a California bank guy. And while Tammy's championed Buy in America laws, Eric Hovde has cashed in on companies shipping jobs overseas. That is bad for Wisconsin, Eric. Tammy fought to make sure health care is affordable and accessible. Eric Hovde wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act and put drug companies back in the driver's seats. Not good. Tammy fought to protect Social Security and Medicare, but Eric Hovde wants to slash benefits and give big handouts to the people at top. So here's the deal. It's real simple. We have to re-elect Tammy Baldwin, period. Now, you might have seen my friends, Gretchen Whitmer and Josh Shapiro and I, we went traveling across the blue walled states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And here's what I can tell you about my travels. A bit of breaking news here. This election is going to be close. So they say. We have the momentum. We have the momentum, but this is Wisconsin after all, and we know about a thing or two about close elections. I think I do. 1%, 3% is a landslide. Believe me, so here's the honest truth. The difference in this election will come down to the work we do over the next 2 days and the conversations we have with people we know who still haven't decided where or where not they're going to vote and with whom they're going to vote. Each of us has our own reasons why. I just got to back up here a second. My wife was on the phone yesterday. My wife, Kathy. Kathy, you're here someplace. She spent 2 hours on the phone with somebody that she knows, convincing him to vote for the Democrats in Wisconsin. And I think she hit pay dirt. So thanks, Kathy. Each of us have our own reasons why this election is so damn important. Each of us has a why, and I'll tell you mine. I think they're going to be very similar to yours. I'm voting for Vice President Harris, Tammy, and Democrats up and down the ballot in November 5th because I want people to keep their quality, affordable health care, including people under the age of 26. And those like me who have a pre-existing condition. I want to restore Roe and reproductive freedom for women in Wisconsin and across America. I want LGBTQ kids and people to be treated with dignity and respect. I believe climate change is a threat to Wisconsin's way of life, and I want elected officials to take this seriously. And I want to leave my kids and my 9 grandkids with more rights and freedoms, a better world, and a brighter future than the one we inherited. So, I am counting on you to vote, and I'm asking you to do one more thing for me. I need you to reach out to those folks in your life. There are people that you know who aren't sure, don't have a plan to vote. I mentioned with Kathy doing it for 2 hours yesterday. We have to reach them. We have to make sure every person knows how important this election means for us personally. We have to share with them our why. So, can I count on you in the next 2 days to call or text 10 people in your life to share your why and make sure they have a plan and get out and vote? We have just 2 days, folks. We sure as hell aren't going back, and you are going to make the difference to make sure that we don't. Let's dig deep as we can. Let's get to work. Let's go win this damn thing. Here we go. Thank you, Wisconsin. Thank you, Milwaukee. Thank you.
I'm building tryna smoke with the yak in your mouth. And we back outside. You said you outside, but you ain't that outside. Worldwide hoodie with the mask outside. In case you forgot how we act outside. Motivation. I found me a new foundation, yeah. Checking my new salvation. And I'ma build my own foundation, yeah. Now, baby, you won't break my soul. 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 And I'm telling everybody, yeah. If you don't seek it, you won't see it. That we all know. Can't break my soul. If you don't think it, you won't be it. That love ain't yours. Can't break my soul. Trying to fake it never makes it. That we all know. Can't break my soul. Have the stress and I'll take less. I'll justify love. We go round in circles, searching for love. We go up and down, lost and found, searching for love. Looking for something that lives inside me. For something that lives inside me. You won't break my soul. 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 Telling everybody, telling everybody, everybody, everybody. You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. No, no. You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. And I'm telling everybody, 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 everybody. I'm taking my new salvation. And I'm building my own foundation, yeah. Got motivation. I done found me a new foundation, yeah. I'm taking my new salvation. And I'ma build my own foundation, yeah.
Don't never take my power, my power, my power. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. They feel away, oh wow. They feel away, oh wow. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. They feel away, oh wow. They feel away, oh wow. I was always in the lead. Who you wanna be? I'm who they wanna be. B-E-A-U-T-Y-E. Never seen so much rage from a queen. Rage from a queen. Queen so strong, thought she was a machine. Girl of your dreams, Sinclair Regine. Turn to the max, can't forget Maxine. Refer to me as a goddess. I'm tired of being modest. 100 degrees the hottest. If we're being honest, ebony antibiotics. Black people win, they say we being demonic. Angel in disguise, I hate I have to disguise it. Why you gotta despise it? Rich in the mind, that's why I'm making deposits. Carry all of power, it's time to realize it. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. They feel away, oh wow. They feel away, oh wow. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. They feel away, oh wow. They feel away, oh wow.
This that rhythm, this that lightning, this that burn, this ain't no perm. This that nappy, this that herb, this that kinfolk, this that skinfolk, this that war, this that bloodline on the front line, ready for war. Where you gonna run? Get it loose, get it low, get it low. Why you get it loose, get it loose, get it low, get it low. Oh, oh, gotta protect my grace, keep it locked in the take.
Don't never take my power, my power, my power. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. They feel away, oh wow. They feel away, oh wow. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. They feel away, oh wow. They feel away, oh wow.
Fumani bo, salingenile ikumkani, ningangabasi amandla, ngizokobisa abanenkani. Thulani bo, salivukile timoni la, nibabuzile abasiyongani. There will be peace when I'm done. Chongani bo, ngimneski msam, sizile thile izikhali, la amagwala wahlangani. Hlalani bo, nayibona inkinga lento soyilungisa, thembami, goqa amakhosi ayiqeda manje.
Take my power, my power, my power. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. They feel away, oh wow. They feel away, oh wow. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. Don't never take my power, my power, my power. They feel away, oh wow. They feel away, oh wow.
And I'll be the back of more. You know, be the touch of more.
Essence means let's go. So
Boom, boom, check you later. I roll with the danger. I go yiki, ninja, me nandi, ninja. Boom, boom, check you later. I roll with the danger. I go yiki, ninja, me nandi, ninja. What's up?
Long live the king, you know it. King already, you know it. Top everything, you know it. King already, you know it. My body, soul, got a king body. Body gon' shine, bling, bling body. Calling all the shots, ring, ring body. Crown on your head, got a king body. Long live the king, you know it. King already, my baby, you know it. Top everything, you know it. King already, you know it. Shine already, it's time already. Align already, it's time already. Shine already, it's time already. The line already, it's time already.
Try to stop it, me say no, no, no. Royalty say don't you, no, no, no. Try to stop it, me say go, 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 go. Bubble up and watch it go, 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 go. Be ruler, yeah. Everybody are the conquer, yeah. Every king be stronger, yeah. King the rule them longer, yeah. Remember who you are, oh. Real king always be no. Give up be brave, oh. And show your people my love. You sang my ready, I say you sang my ready. You line already, I say you line already. Only you got the remedy, I say you got the remedy. Shine your body, shine your body.
Long live the king, you know it. King already, you know it. Top everything, you know it. King already, you know it. My body, soul, got a king body. Body gon' shine, bling, bling body. Calling all the shots, ring, ring body. Crown on your head, got a king body. Long live the king, you know it. King already, my baby, you know it. Top everything, you know it. King already, you know it. Shine already, it's time already. Shine already, it's time already. Shine already, it's time already. Shine already, it's time already.
Shine already, it's time already. The line already, it's time already. Shine already, it's time already. The line already, it's time already. Try to stop it, me say no, no, no. Royalty say don't you, no, no, no. Try to stop it, me say go, 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 go. Bubble up and watch it go, 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 go.
Diamonds on my fist, fighting demons, y'all. Come and rest your head, take your crown off. Woke up in the phone, need to take it slow. He said I'm moving too fast, need to take it slow. Take it slow. Take it slow. Trying to take my baby home. Take it slow.
Remember who you are. Real king always. up everything, everything you know it. Show them the way, you know it, you know it, you know it.
There's so many girls I hear you've been running from the beautiful queen that you can be becoming. You can look in my palm and see the storm coming. Read the book of my life and see I've overcome it. Just because the length of your hair ain't long, and they often criticize you for your skin tone. Gonna hold your head high cause you a pretty woman. Get your runway stride home and keep it going. Girl, live your life. I just wanna be myself. Yeah, don't sweat, girl, be yourself. Follow me, follow me, follow me. Girl, be yourself. That's why I be myself. Ooh, let 'em get mad. They gon' hate anyway, don't you get that? Doesn't matter if you're going along with their plan. They'll never be happy cause they're not happy with themselves. I'm talking about things that I know. It's okay, show yourself some love. Don't worry about who's saying a word. Work what you got. Feeling great because the lights on me. Celebrating the things that everyone told me would never happen, but God has put his hands on me. And ain't a man alive could ever take it from me. Working with what I gotta keep on. Taking care of myself, I wanna live long. Ain't never ashamed what life did to me. Wasn't afraid to change cause it was good for me. I just wanna be myself. I just wanna be. Don't sweat, girl, be yourself. Don't sweat, girl. Follow me, follow me. That's why I be myself. Let 'em get mad. They gon' hate anyway, don't you get that? Doesn't matter if you're going along with their plan. They'll never be happy cause they're not happy with themselves. I'm talking about things that I know. It's okay, show yourself some love. Don't worry about who's saying a word. Work what you got. Yeah, yeah. Work it out, lady. Ooh, work that, work that. Work that, work that, don't hold back. Ooh, work what you got. I'm talking about things that I know. It's okay, show yourself some love. Don't worry about who's saying a word. Work what you got. Yeah, yeah. Work it out, lady. Ooh, work that, work that. Work that, work that, don't hold back. Ooh, work what you got.
You're gonna say that I'm on a high horse. I think that my horse is regular sized. Do you ever think maybe you're on a pony, going in circles on a carousel ride? You're gonna say I asked for the moon. I think that it's you with your head in the sky. All that I wanted was somebody honest, living for more than the next good time. You say that you wanna change, but I hope you get everything you want. Everything you want. You say that you need relief, but I hope you get everything you need. Everything but me. 'Cause I don't wanna stick around trying to work it out when everything feels wrong. Everything feels wrong. But it's all love and there's no regrets. You can call me if there's anything you need. Anything, anything
broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round. And you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. We have each other, and for that we have each other, and we will rise, we will rise, we'll rise, oh, we'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, I like the waves. We'll rise up, in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. again and again and again and again. Now everybody asks me why I'm smiling up from ear to ear, but I know nothing's perfect, but it's worth it after fighting through my tears. And finally you put me first. Baby, it's you. You're the one I love. You're the one I need. You're the only one I see. Come on, baby, it's you. You're the one that gives your all. You're the one I can always call when I need to make everything stop. Finally, you put my love on top. Oh, baby, you put my love on top, 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 top. You put my love on top. Oh, come on, baby, you put my love on top, 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 top. My love on top.
Please welcome student and community organizer Darian Steffen.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
If you need me, call me. No matter where you are, no matter how far.
Wow. Milwaukee, you look so beautiful today. Please give yourself a round of applause. My name is Darian Steffen. Yes. I am a first-generation senior and proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated at Marquette University. I grew up not far from here in Menominee Falls, and I just got my dream internship with the Milwaukee Bucks. Thank you. Thank you. This Tuesday will be my first time voting in a presidential election, and I could not. Yes. I couldn't be more proud to be casting my ballot for Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. Over the past few weeks, my fraternity brothers and I have knocked on hundreds of doors to make sure our neighbors understand what is at stake in this election. I'm voting for them because we need leaders in the White House who will protect our freedoms, create more good jobs, and make it easier for people like me to afford groceries, healthcare, and housing. Donald Trump is running to enact his extreme and dangerous agenda, raising taxes like families that I grew up in while giving tax breaks to the super rich. Okay, there we go. I know what it's like to be the underdog. When I was younger, I lost my mother in a car accident that left my father with a broken back. For 10 years, I watched my dad work hard to raise our family on his own. I would have never dreamed of being on stage here today, welcoming the first Black president of the United States. Just like me, people have counted out Vice President Harris her entire life. And time again, she has shown to us that she has the character and the skills that we need in a president. While Donald Trump fights for billionaires and his wealthy friends, Kamala Harris will fight every day for us. That is why we need to send her to the White House, Senator Baldwin back to the Senate, and elect Democrats up and down the ballot. I don't know about you, Milwaukee, but I'm feeling real fired up. Are you guys ready to go? Thank you all so much. And now it is my honor to introduce someone who has been working for Wisconsin her entire career. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Tammy Baldwin.
Ain't nobody crying. Ain't nobody worried. Ain't no smiling faces. No, no, flying to the races. Help me.
Well, let's give it up for Darian. Thank you. Hello, Wisconsin. I'm so excited to be back today. It is such an honor to welcome President Barack Obama back to our state. And, you know, having President Obama back here again shows that it's clear that this campaign knows that the path to the presidency and control of the United States Senate runs directly through our state because we are the battleground state in this election. Wisconsin will decide who our next president is and which party controls the United States Senate. No pressure. No pressure. And speaking of that U.S. Senate seat, I'm being challenged by a self-funding multimillionaire by the name of Eric Hovde. So, don't boo, vote. And let me tell you a little bit about Eric. He owns a $3 billion California bank, a $7 million Laguna Beach oceanfront home in California. And listen, he's been named one of the more influential residents of Orange County 3 years in a row. Now, Wisconsin, we have a green county, we have a brown county, we do not have an Orange County, Wisconsin. We don't. We just don't. And we may laugh at that, but the stakes of this race are so incredibly high. You know, Eric Hovde celebrated when Roe was overturned. Meanwhile, I am leading the charge to restore Roe v. Wade and restore reproductive freedoms nationwide. Yep. And I want women, not politicians, to decide our own health care. Thank you. And on that topic of health care, Eric Hovde wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, in its entirety. He does. That would kick millions of Americans off their health plans. But just a little bragging here. I wrote the provision in the Affordable Care Act that allows young people to stay on their parents' health insurance until they turn 26. Yep. So, if you're on your parents' health insurance, I had a little to do with that. And I will always fight to protect and expand your health care. On the economy, Eric is running on something we're calling the Hovde Plan. His plan cuts Social Security by 28%. That would cost an average retiree about $6,000 per year. Why would he do that? So he can give a $4 trillion tax cut to big corporations and multimillionaires like himself. Yeah. But with Eric Hovde, it's more than that. you might have noticed that he's just about insulted everybody, right? Farmers, single moms, kids of single moms, the LGBTQ community, seniors in nursing homes, people struggling with their weight. You name it, he's insulted us. And it seems like if you're not a rich guy like him, he doesn't think very much of you. It's clear to me that he's spent more time on his private California beach than on any factory floor, or family farm here in the state of Wisconsin. And here in Wisconsin, we deserve a senator who understands us, who is fighting for us, not one who insults us. So, Wisconsin, the stakes could not be higher for our reproductive freedoms, for our health care, for our economy. We have the choice to embrace our state motto and move forward, or let Hovde take us backwards. And you know what? We are not going back. So, we are not going back. So if you have not voted, Tuesday is your last chance. So bring your friends and get out there and vote. And it's amazing to see so many of you here excited about this election, understanding the stakes of the election. With the energy we have today, with this crowd, I know that together we will fight, say it with me, and together we will win. Yes. And that brings me, my friends, to our special guest. Yes. A history-making president who has fought and won for us time and time again. As I mentioned, I had the honor of working with President Obama as we passed the Affordable Care Act, expanding health care coverage to tens of millions of Americans. Night and day, he went to work. Night and day, he delivered. He speaks to our better angels and to what's best in all of us as Americans. I am proud to call him a friend, and I am so excited to welcome him to the stage. Please give a warm Wisconsin welcome to President Barack Obama.
Hello, Milwaukee! Are you fired up yet? Are you ready to go? Oh, it is good to be back in Wisconsin. Good to be back in the Midwest. And good to be back in Milwaukee. Now, you may have noticed we're doing our rally a little early because we have to wrap up before the Packers-Lions game starts. So, cheeseheads, don't worry. I'm not trying to compete against that. And the Bears are also playing, so. Hey. Right now we're on the same team, people. I am here for a very important reason, and that is to ask you to vote for one of my favorite congresswomen, Gwen Moore, for your wonderful Senator, Tammy Baldwin, And for the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris. Now, if you have not voted yet, today is the last day of early voting in Milwaukee. You can still get it done before the game. I won't be offended if you leave right now. If you have an absentee ballot, do not put it in the mail at this point. Bring it to a drop box at any early voting site. And if you can't vote early, make a plan to vote on Election Day, November 5th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Just go to let me make sure I get this right, wisdems.org/vote. And that'll tell you where you can go. And remember to bring your photo ID. And then get your friends and your family to make a plan to vote too, because together, in 3 days, we have a chance to choose a new generation of leadership in this country and start building a better and stronger and more hopeful America. Now, I don't think it's any news to you that this election is going to be tight. It's going to be tight because a lot of Americans are still struggling. You know, as a country, sometimes I think we forget we have been through a lot over these last few years. We had a historic pandemic that wreaked havoc on communities and businesses and families. The disruptions from the pandemic caused price hikes that put a strain on family budgets. And even before the pandemic, a lot of Americans felt that no matter how hard they worked, treading water was the best they could do. So I understand why people are looking to shake things up. What I cannot understand is why anybody would think Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you. Because there is absolutely no evidence that this man thinks about anybody but himself. This is a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down that golden escalator 9 years ago. And we've seen it for over a decade now, this show of his. The late night tweets, all caps. The weird tangents and crazy conspiracy theories. The constant attempts to sell you stuff. Gold sneakers, a $100,000 watch, even a Trump Bible. He wants you to buy the Word of God, Donald Trump edition. He's got his name right there next to Matthew and Luke. Who does that? The point is, Donald Trump is not thinking about you. His entire campaign, just like his entire presidency, has always been based on him. It's about him, his status, his money, his ego, his grievances, his insecurities. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his buddies. He doesn't care if he costs more women their reproductive freedom, because apparently he doesn't think that it's going to affect him. It won't make a difference in his life. But most of all, Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them, between real Americans, quote unquote, who support him, of course, and outsiders who don't. Because he thinks that having America divided, having people angry and resentful, will increase his chances to get elected. It's as simple as that. And I'm here to tell you, Milwaukee, we do not need another 4 years of Trump's arrogance and incompetence and division. America's better than that. America's ready to turn the page. America's ready for a new story, a better story. We are ready for a president, Kamala Harris. And the good news is Kamala Harris is ready for the job. This is a leader who has spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a champion. Kamala was raised by a middle-class family, mostly by a single mom. She knows what it's like to have to scrap and save to make ends meet. When she was in college, she worked at McDonald's to help put herself through school. She didn't pretend to work at McDonald's when it was closed. Her mom was I guess 5 feet tall, little brown woman with an accent. And you can imagine that she wasn't always given her due. But her mom taught Kamala and her sister to not only stand up for herself, but to also stand up for injustice. And that's exactly what Kamala has been doing her entire career. As a prosecutor, Kamala stood up for children who had been victims of sexual abuse. As Attorney General of the state of California, she fought the big banks and for-profit colleges, securing billions of dollars for people that had been scammed. And after the mortgage crisis, Kamala pushed me and my administration hard to make sure that homeowners got a fair settlement. So again and again, Kamala has fought for people who needed a voice, who needed a champion, and she delivered on their behalf. That's who Kamala is. And you may not agree with every decision she makes, but I can promise you, if you elect her, she will see you and hear you, and she will have your back every single day, and she will work hard on behalf of all Americans. And by the way, she'll have an outstanding partner in Governor Tim Walz. I love that dude. He is a veteran, he's a teacher, he's a coach, he was a great governor. Turns out he can even take a vintage truck apart and put it back together again. You think Donald Trump can do that? Do you think Donald Trump has ever changed a tire in his life? If he gets a flat tire, he calls his chauffeur, Jeeves. Jeeves, change that tire. I don't know if his chauffeur is actually named Jeeves, but I like to think it's Jeeves. The point is, if you elect Kamala and Tim, they know something about your life because it's been their life. They'll be focused not on their problems, they'll be focused on yours. And that's why, for so many of us, the choice in this election seems like it should be so clear. I mean, on the one hand, you've got a former president whose time in office was characterized by so much chaos and scandal that he was impeached not once, but twice. Twice. And on the other end, you've got somebody who cares about working people and who has served with distinction in every office that she has ever held. But here's the thing, Milwaukee. We live in a big country. Wisconsin's a big state. People have a lot of different points of view. There are voters out there who are just as passionate about Trump as we are about Kamala. And just like the last two elections, this one is going to be determined by a handful of people who are genuinely torn about who to vote for or are debating whether to vote at all. Which is why, if y'all don't mind, I want to speak directly to those who may be watching, maybe listening, friends of yours, maybe a few of you who are still here, who are still undecided. Those of you those of you who see Donald Trump's flaws but don't feel like you know Kamala well enough. Or those of you who are concerned about democracy but are more concerned about making ends meet. Or those of you who understand the difference between the two candidates but don't think this election will actually make a difference in your life. Now, when I talk to folks that are genuinely undecided, the first thing they'll say is that they want a president who will improve the economy. And that makes sense. Even though wages are steadily growing, unemployment is relatively low, inflation is finally slowing, but the price of everything from healthcare to housing to groceries is still too high. The question I ask them, the question I think we all have to ask ourselves is, who's really going to do something about it? Now, in talking to people, I've realized, so I want to address this. It turns out one of the reasons people think Donald Trump will improve the economy is because they watched The Apprentice. I'm serious. No. I'm not kidding. I've heard this, people say this. I happened to miss that show when it was running, but it was really popular. So I want everybody to be clear. That was not reality. That was a reality show. The truth is, Donald Trump was given $400 million by his daddy. That's how he got rich. And somehow his company still managed to declare bankruptcy 6 times. So let's put that aside for a second. When it comes to actual policy, Donald Trump has offered up 2 ideas. The first is, once again, he wants to give another massive tax cut to billionaires and big corporations. Now, some people might hear that and they say to themselves, well, I remember the economy being pretty good when he first came into office. It was, because it was my economy. I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess the Republicans left me. Y'all remember, auto plants all across the Midwest, including here in Wisconsin, flat on their backs, on the verge of bankruptcy. And we worked and we worked. And after 8 years, I then handed off over 75 straight months of job growth and low inflation to Donald Trump. And the only thing his tax cuts did back then was to help folks that were already doing good and drive up the deficit in the meantime. Trump's other big idea is to slap a tariff on everything from food to TVs. Now, almost every economist who has looked at this idea says that won't lower prices, that makes prices higher. And when he's challenged on this point, Trump will brag about, well, look at gas prices. They were $2 a gallon when I was in office. You know why gas was so cheap? Because there was a global lockdown during COVID and nobody was driving. And he's talking about it like it was the good old days. I want us to remember that. Yes, Gas was super cheap because we were stuck inside the house. Nobody was buying gas. So then I'll hear people say, well, at least Donald Trump sent me a check during the pandemic. Now, wait, y'all have heard this. I guarantee you some of you have heard this from somebody. So I want to clear this up as well. At the start of COVID, Democrats and Republicans joined together to send out emergency checks. Tammy was there. And you know what? Joe Biden worked with Congress and sent out an emergency check during the pandemic. Just like I worked with Congress to give people emergency relief during the Great Recession. There was not anything unique about what Donald Trump did, except unlike Joe Biden and me, he put his name on the check as a marketing tool. I'd never thought of that. For me, for Joe Biden, it was not about taking credit and advancing our politics and feeding our egos. It was about helping people during tough times. So, the point is, for those of you who are still making up your minds out there, do not give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt because he was on a reality show. And certainly do not give him credit for an economy that he inherited. There is only one candidate who has offered serious ideas about how to drive down prices and make this economy work for everybody, and that is Kamala Harris. She's going to go after corporations that unfairly jack up prices. She's got detailed plans to work with local governments and the private sector to build 3 million new affordable homes all across America and then help first-time home buyers with their down payments. She's going to give a tax cut to 100 million middle-class and working Americans, helping small businesses get started, helping first-time parents with the basic costs of having a child. Now let's talk about health care. If you ask Donald Trump what he's going to do to make health care more affordable, he's got one answer, and that is repeal the Affordable Care Act. And he's not by himself. The other day, the Speaker of the House, the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said there would be, quote, no Obamacare if Trump wins. Now, do not boo. Vote. Now, neither of them can really explain why they want to end it, except for the fact that I did it. The problem they have is, guess what? The Affordable Care Act works. Almost 50 million people have gotten health care because of it. Another 50 million have the security of knowing insurance companies can't deny them coverage because of a pre-existing condition. The more people benefit, the more popular it has become. Which is why a couple weeks ago, some of y'all saw this, Trump's running mate, Mr. Vance, do not boo, vote. Mr. Vance had the nerve to say Donald Trump, quote, salvaged the Affordable Care Act. What? What? Donald Trump spent his entire presidency trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, trying to tear it down, and he couldn't even do that right. And now, 8 years after he was elected, he was asked, well, if you did repeal it, what would you replace it with? And he looked, and he kind of fumbled around, and they said, well, I've got concepts of a plan for how to replace it. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Let's say your boss gives you an assignment, says, I need it by Friday. Friday rolls around. Your boss comes up to you, says, did you finish that project for me? You say, well, actually, I haven't started, but I do have a concept of a plan. or you could try it at home. Honey, did you do the dishes? You throw out the trash? I've been watching this football game, but I do have a concept of a plan to do the dishes. How's that going over? You're on the couch. If it would not work for you, why should it work for the President of the United States? It shouldn't. The good news is Kamala Harris doesn't have concepts of a plan. She has actual plans to limit out-of-pocket health care costs, to keep lowering prescription drug prices. And Kamala Harris understands the threat to women's health that has been posed by the decision of Donald Trump's Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. Since then, we have seen effective abortion bans in 20 states. Infant mortality rates have begun to tick up. Doctors are afraid to provide potential life-saving treatment to at-risk mothers. I've always said, I respect those who, for religious or ethical reasons, would not consider terminating their own pregnancy. But if nothing else, freedom must surely mean that women themselves get to make these profoundly intimate decisions, not politicians. And that's why, if Congress passes a bill to restore the reproductive freedom that women had for nearly 50 years and that Donald Trump bragged about taking away, Kamala Harris will sign it into law. That's what Kamala stands for, not concepts of a plan, actual plans to make your lives better, to protect your freedoms. Now, whenever Donald Trump is challenged on his lack of plans on the economy or health care or anything else, he will fall back on his favorite issue, and that is immigration. According to Trump, it does not matter what the issue is. Housing, crime, a lost pet. If you just let him round up whoever he wants, ship them out, all your problems will be solved. America will be great again. So let's talk about immigration for a second. A lot of folks have legitimate concerns about what's happening at our borders. It is critical that the next president work with Democrats and Republicans to make sure our borders are orderly and secure. We are a nation of immigrants. We are also a nation of laws. And we have to make sure that those two things work together. But, you know, whenever the issue of immigration comes up, Donald Trump likes to say it's Kamala Harris's fault. She's been vice president for 4 years. Why didn't she fix it? Wasn't Donald Trump president for 4 years? Why didn't he fix it? If rounding up and deporting millions of desperate people is the answer to everything, why was the number of undocumented immigrants basically the same when Donald Trump left office as when he took office? Think about that. I'll tell you why. Because Donald Trump doesn't have a real plan to solve immigration. He's got a concept of a plan, and it's a mean and ugly concept. You know what would actually bring order to the border and fix our immigration system? The bipartisan deal that Kamala Harris supported, even though it was written by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress. Donald Trump, on the verge of the vote, told Republicans not to vote for it because His mindset was, I want this issue to run on. I want to be able to fear Mongo. That's how I'm going to win this election. That's how he was thinking. We do not need a president of Wisconsin who will make problems worse just to make their politics better. We need a president who cares about solving problems and making your life better. And that's what Kamala Harris will do. And to help her do it, she's going to need a Senate full of public servants like Tammy Baldwin. Tammy spent her career fighting for things like good jobs and affordable health care and medication and personal freedom. She knows how to make a difference. She has proved she can make a difference. Remember how the Affordable Care Act lets young people stay on their parents' health care plan until they're 26? Tammy wrote that part of the bill. She knew it was important to Wisconsin families. That's the kind of workhorse and not showhorse that we need in Washington. That's the kind of person who's going to help get Kamala in office and help Kamala get stuff done. Somebody who shares our values. Somebody who wants to move this country forward and not back. Yeah, she's really good. Tammy's legit. Now, there's one last thing I hear from undecided voters, and this, I'll be honest with you, may be the toughest answer. Toughest to answer. They'll tell me that at the end of the day, from their perspective, politicians are all the same. They make empty promises. Regardless who ends up being the next president, it's not really going to make a difference in their lives. And I know you've heard that from friends, neighbors, coworkers. And I think we can all understand why people might feel that way. You know, if you live in a small town in rural Wisconsin and you saw the plant close down and jobs get shipped overseas and young people start moving away because they don't feel like they've got a fair shot at advancement, you're going to feel skeptical about government being able to bring about real change. If you live in a neighborhood in Milwaukee where gun violence and the drug trade are a fact of life, and parents are scared about their kids just getting to and from school, you're going to feel the same way. So if that's your perspective, I want to be honest. Politics, you're right, politics is not going to solve all of your problems. No matter how well-meaning a president might be, he or she is not going to get rid of poverty or eliminate racism in one term or two. No president's going to reverse every long-term economic trend. They can't make sure your boss doesn't act like a jerk or make your kids listen to you when they're doing something stupid. But what government can do is make your life a little better. A president who's serious and who cares about you can make it a little easier for you to afford a home, a little easier for you to pay for your medicine, make it a little easier to send your kid to college or to get him an apprenticeship in a trade. And those small measures of improvement over time add up. And the flip side is a bad president, a president who does not see you, who does not care about you, can make your life a little bit harder. And that adds up too. When I was president, I did not solve all the problems of our healthcare system. But just this week, while I was visiting a campaign volunteer office in Maryland, 3 people separately, unprompted, came up and told me how the ACA had protected their families during a serious illness. One woman comes up and she says, "You saved my son's life." Now, I promise you, every single one of you here, somebody you know has health care because of the Affordable Care Act. And it did not solve every problem, but it's made a difference. It's provided people with some security, and I could not have done that without your vote. Now, I will give you the opposite example. When I was president, we had to deal with Ebola and H1N virus, and so I started really studying issues of pandemic, and I called my team together in my second term, and I said, we need to put together a playbook for how to deal with pandemic, the same way we have a playbook for how to deal with natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, et cetera. What are we going to do? And so we put together the playbook, we called together all the agencies, sat them down, we ran what are called tabletop exercises to practice how are we going to deal with the state public health systems, what are we going to do with the schools, what kinds of travel restrictions might be put in place, how do we accelerate vaccines, had it all in this big book. And so when Donald Trump comes in, I hand it to him. Where's the book? I handed it to him, and apparently it was lost. And 3 years later, a pandemic hits. Now, I want to be fair on this. No matter who was president, the pandemic was going to be a terrible crisis. People were going to get sick, people were going to die. But if you look at a country like Canada, their per capita death rate, think about this, their per capita death rate was 60% lower than in the United States. Now, over 1 million people died during the pandemic here in the US, so do the math. 60% of 1 million people is 600,000 people. That's somebody's grandparent. That's somebody's parent. That's somebody's husband or wife. That's somebody's coworker, somebody's friend that might be alive if we had had a competent president who was focused on dealing with the crisis instead of wondering whether we could treat COVID by injecting bleach into our arms. So if somebody tells you this election does not matter, tell them respectfully that having a president who understands policy and is willing to put in the work does matter. And for those of you who, even after they hear that, are still undecided, let me tell you what else matters. Values matter. Character matters. A president makes 1 million decisions. And most of the time, they're judgment calls. The easy decisions, the obvious decisions get made by somebody else. The hard ones are what gets to the president's desk. And you can't anticipate every issue that's going to come down the pipe. And so it's really important. Does that person have a moral compass? Do they have some integrity? Are they focused on doing what's right by the American people? Values matter. Some of you know that when I was growing up, I didn't have a father in the house, but I did have people around me. Stepfather, grandparents, teachers, coaches, most of all my mom, who taught me the difference between right and wrong. Who showed me what it meant to have integrity, to be honest, to be responsible, to work hard, to treat other people the way I wanted to be treated. Now, there were times where I did not perfectly live up to those values, especially when I was a teenager. But as I got older, I internalized those values. I tried to live up to them. Not perfectly, but but I knew they were important, and I wanted to be that person. And I suspect most of you grew up the same way. And one of the most disturbing things about this election, not just this election, but Trump's entire rise in politics, you can see it just pervading our political culture, is how we seem to have just set aside those values that we were taught. A month ago, we had one of the deadliest hurricanes in American history. President Biden and Vice President Harris were in some of the communities that were affected, meeting with local officials, comforting families. And at the same time, Donald Trump and Vance were making up stories about the Biden administration withholding aid, not giving it to Republican areas, giving it to undocumented immigrants, just making stuff up. Even Republicans on the ground said that's not true. That's a bald-faced lie. My question is, when did that become okay? At a time when people were desperate and they need help, why would you try to exploit that for political gain? No matter where you stand on the issues, no matter what party you belong to, why would you go along with that? If your coworkers acted like that, they wouldn't be your coworkers for very long. If you had family members, if you had a family member who acted like that, you might still love them, but you wouldn't put them in charge of anything because you'd realize they're not trustworthy. And yet, when Donald Trump lies or cheats or shows utter disregard for our Constitution, when he calls service members who died in battle losers or fellow citizens vermin, so many of his supporters are willing to excuse it or justify it or overlook it. You know, it's been 20 years since I first appeared before a national audience at the Democratic Convention in Boston. And in that speech, I insisted there are no red states or blue states, no black America or white America, or gay or straight America. There was just the United States of America. And some people at the time, and certainly in subsequent years, thought, that's naive, given how divided the country seemed at the time. But you know what? It was based on my experience. Because traveling across Illinois and later traveling across places like Wisconsin and Michigan and the rest of the country, I had witnessed time and again the goodness and the neighborliness, the shared values and the integrity that bound people together. I had seen people who had opposed the Iraq War stand up and salute a vet or volunteer to help wounded warriors. I had seen conservative Republicans provide shelter and support for young immigrants and help homeless folks in their communities. It didn't matter what part of the country it was, what race or faith people were from. I saw people live up to that golden rule. And a lot has changed since then. I've gotten grayer, obviously. Our politics has gotten a lot more toxic. Social media is full of conspiracy theories and outright lies. Some of it, by the way, produced by the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians. And all those messages fed into our phones and into our brains isolate us and divide us, encourage us to mistrust each other and even hate each other. But I remain convinced that that is not the kind of country most of us want. I believe that the vast majority of people in this country are good, and that they are honest, and that they are generous, and that they are fair. And whether they are Democrats or Republicans or independents, they want those values reflected in their politics. And whatever questions you may still have about Kamala's position on this or that issue, I can tell you that not just in this campaign, but throughout her entire career, she has conducted herself with grace and with dignity, that she respects people of all races and all faiths, that she does not demonize those who do not support her or threaten those who disagree with her, and that as president, she will care and listen to all the people of these United States. So in these last 3 days, as I hope you are talking to people who are still undecided, I hope the conversation isn't just about policy. I hope it's also about values, about decency. If you're a small business owner who thinks Democrats are too quick to regulate, that's a legitimate debate to have. But what does it say when Donald Trump's history as a businessman is littered with so many scams and lawsuits that people in his own hometown don't want to work with him? Would you do business with someone like that? And if you wouldn't, why would you want him as your president? Regardless of what your party affiliation is. If you're a union member, think about who's more likely to look out for your interests. Somebody like Kamala, who has stood up for working people all her life, or somebody like Donald Trump, who has encouraged union busting and stiffed his own workers. If he cheats them, what's he going to do for you? If you're a service member who's used to voting Republican because you think traditionally they've been tougher on national defense, I understand that. We can have that debate. But what does it tell you that some of this country's most decorated soldiers and Marines, men who served under Donald Trump as his chief of staff, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, have seen Donald Trump up close, and they have said that he is scornful toward those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, that he does not understand the concepts of duty and honor, and that he is not fit to serve as our commander-in-chief. If you are black or Latino, and you feel like too often your community is overlooked by politicians except during election time, I get how you feel. But why would you think the answer is to vote for someone who has a long history of demeaning and disregarding your communities, whose family business was sued for not renting to folks that look like you, who cannot apparently understand how an NBA superstar could be both Greek and black, who suggests any Mexican crossing the border is a criminal and a rapist, who spreads ridiculous fantasies that Haitians are eating people's pets, who just this past week arranged for one of his supporters to tell jokes about black people eating watermelon and Puerto Rico being an island of garbage right there on stage at Madison Square Garden. Do you think that's somebody who's going to look out for you? Maybe you're Muslim American or Jewish American, and you are heartbroken and furious about the ongoing bloodshed in the Middle East and worried about the rise of anti-Semitism. Why would you place your faith in somebody who instituted a so-called Muslim ban, who sat down for pleasantries with Holocaust deniers, who said that there were very fine people on both sides of a white supremacist rally? And if any of you have a dad or an uncle or a coworker or a drinking buddy who says he's thinking about voting for Trump because he's tired of cancel culture, or because he's uncomfortable with Kamala's position on transgender issues, or because he just thinks that America needs a strong, tough leader who will get stuff done. You might want to ask them, with respect and with love, what evidence do we have that Donald Trump actually got stuff done? And since when exactly is Trump's trademark behavior, the boasting and the bullying and the selfishness and the cruelty, since when is that a sign of strength? That is not what real strength looks like, Milwaukee. It never has been. Real strength is about working hard and taking responsibility and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength's about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. That's what we should want in our daughters and in our sons, and that's what I want to see in the President of the United States of America. And fortunately, in Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and Tammy Baldwin, you have candidates to vote for in this election who demonstrate that kind of character, who know what real strength looks like, who will set a good example and do the right thing and lead this country better than they found it. So if you are still on the fence in this election, think about what really matters. Think about the values we were taught by our parents and our grandparents. Think about the kind of country we want to be. And understand that your vote really does count. Here in Wisconsin, a single precinct might be decided by 10 or 20 votes. And those votes could determine the fate of our republic, the world that our children and grandchildren will inherit. That is an awesome responsibility. But what an extraordinary privilege that is. To live in a democracy that gives each of us the chance to make a difference, gives each of us the chance to make our voices heard. So, together, let's seize that opportunity. Let's vote for Kamala Harris as the next President of the United States. Let's vote for Tim Walz as the next Vice President of the United States. Let's vote for Tammy Baldwin and this whole incredible Wisconsin Democratic ticket. Let's help our friends and family members and neighbors and co-workers do the same, because if enough of us make our voices heard, we will leave no doubt about the outcome of this election. We will leave no doubt about who we are and what America stands for. And together we will keep building a country that is more fair and more just and more equal and more free. Let's get to work.
Thunder's rolling down this track. Well, you don't know where you're going now, but you know you won't be back. Well, darling, if you're weary, lay your head upon my chest. We'll take stumbling